Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer at Geek Vibes Nation. I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for geekvibesnation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to the Video Attic. It's not a new release roundup.
Mm-mm.
It is something different. We are it is Noirvember. It will still be Noirvember when we post this. And we are talking about two sets from Kino Studio Classics. And I am really excited, but I am going to let you kick this party off and talk about the film noir Dark Side of Cinema, Volume 11.
Yes, volume 11. We are starting with the Americans. So these three films, we'll get into them, but I will just say this is composed of three interesting films. First is A Woman's Vengeance, which features my man Charles Boyer. I've been talking about him a lot recently, but he plays a man who no longer is really involved with his wife, and he's kind of left her to her own devices. He is taken up with this young lady, and then he also has like this young, I believe it's his daughter-in-law, who is played by Jessica Tandy, I'll just say before we get into it, it is really weird to see Jessica Tandy as kind of younger but still looking older. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of weird. But it's basically this man kind of get his comeuppance, getting involved in this murder plot, or not quite, yes, murder, but he is accused of murdering his wife. So just kind of, we'll get into it, but that's kind of the tale of just like a man getting caught up in a murder tale. The next one, I found an interesting concept. I Was a Shoplifter, which is basically two people get involved in like a department store at the beginning because they both get caught for shoplifting. One of them is like an undercover detective. The other is just kind of like a bored heiress who is just kind of claim her own independence. But they kind of get recruited by this gang of thieves who are like recruiting people to shoplift, and it's heightened, it's ridiculous, but it's pretty fun. But finally, we have behind the High Wall, which is basically like a prison drama. There's a prison warden who gets kind of involved in this crime. He's like always been on the straight and narrow. He's been like kind of passed over for certain promotions time after time, and whenever these gang of robbers or these criminals try to escape and like commit some crimes, he does not completely follow the letter of the law as to how he should handle it. But then he also gets set some other people up to take fall for something that he himself did. So it's just, that one's interesting as well. We will get into it. But I want to say, what is your favorite of these three films? How are you feeling about this set?
So I like this set overall. I think my favorite one though is A Woman's Vengeance.
Yeah.
I definitely think that is the really more of the sort of, out of all of these, I think it had the most tension. It had like a really interesting I liked every one of these films, but there was something a little bit lacking narrative wise in the other two. And this isn't perfect by any means, but I will say that it kind of has a better follow through, I think, in terms of just narrative bones, but also just in kind of a thematic way. And yeah, Jessica Tandy is kind of weird how she is young but always seemed like she was always old.
Yeah, she plays like 35, but she still seems quite like she just has an old aura.
I love Anne Blythe. Fun fact, I don't know if it's a fun fact, but it is a fact. I wrote to her and she signed some headshots for me, which was really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, she I guess her most famous movie is Mildred Pierce, where she plays the maybe worst daughter of all time. It's amazing. She's great. But yeah, so that was is probably my favorite. And if I had to pick another one, I would say Behind the High Wall has some interesting concepts behind it. Again, I don't think that they take it far enough where it's like really effective, but it's a really interesting set. And just to round out my thoughts really quick on I Was a Shoplifter, I kind of wish they would have called it I Was a Teenage Shoplifter.
Yeah.
I'm only half kidding. I kind of love those I Was a Teenage whatever movies.
Yeah.
But doesn't this kind of feel like one of those really B or C level juvenile delinquent movies?
Yeah, I can see that. I kind of had a feeling, I don't know why I had this feeling, but like at the beginning, whenever they were in the department store, it just made me think like, is this a Christmas movie? Because it made me kind of feel like Miracle on 34th Street or like stuff like or like Holiday Inn, like whenever they're
Yeah.
bustling around in a department store. I was like, is this a secret Christmas movie? I'm like, no, it's just a department store. But
I mean,
it,
that would have been awesome if it actually was sort of a low key kind of Christmas movie. There is you could make the case for one of the noir French noirs that you could make the case a little bit that it's a Christmas movie, but
yeah,
yeah, it's a good set. I will say that again, A Woman's Vengeance is by far the best one, and this looks stunning in 4K. Like they really did a nice job. This has a nice commentary from Jason A. Nay, I think.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, he has done commentary tracks before. I've never been disappointed once, so it was worth watching it a second time with the commentary track. Um, so yeah, I dug that set. It's maybe, if I'm being honest, not one of my favorite of the volumes. But yeah, I think it's worth it for A Woman's Vengeance all by itself. So I'm going to be talking about the French Noir collection here. And this has three films, Speaking of Murder, Back to the Wall, and Witness in the City. So, and then that is what the inside looks like. Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's some really, I will say that I wanted to mention this really quick. I really like the reversible art. I mean, that is some like in your face, a lot
Yeah.
of faces, a lot of.
Yeah.
I will say about this set, there's a lot of like hard faces, and I don't mean that like hard to look at, but just like
Yeah.
world weary, like tough.
They've seen
Uh,
some stuff.
yeah, like this is like I'll get into this. Well, I'll get into my final thoughts about like this overall set, but the first film is Speaking of Murder, and this is a pretty well regarded gangster noir. And doing a little research, I realized that this has a really good reputation for being like a really stellar film. And I believe this is maybe the first time this has been out on Blu-ray in the US. But anyways, the big kind of theme of this is honor among thieves, and I think that's kind of interestingly woven throughout the film. But the other like key thing is like brotherhood, and I think this isn't exactly plot heavy, but I will say that when you have some really um, great sort of like themes to hang your film on, it helps a great deal. And I will say that the violence is really shocking. I'll get your opinion later, but like I thought, like particularly there was that scene where they shoot the men in the car. It's not
Yeah.
super graphic, but I will say for like what was this 57? Yeah, for 1957, this was strong stuff. Like I don't know if like in a pre Bonnie and Clyde kind of landscape in the US, you didn't really see stuff that was like this frank. So I appreciated that. I thought that if you're gonna go there, you should just really like the point is that it's not pretty, it's not glamorous, you know, it is ugly. And I think that that really speaks to that. And the finale is pretty great. I don't want to spoil it, but there is a really nice confrontation. Some of it's a little silly. The one guy gets a shot off where I was like, there's no way. But
Yeah.
it's a movie. It's fine. So yeah, the next one is Back to the Wall, which was funny because I was like, is it like we're going back to the wall or like my back is to the wall? But I think it's
Yeah.
the latter. But anyways, so this one might be my favorite out of the set. I will say that it's very Coen Brothers esque in kind of how it handles not so much visually, although it is visually beautiful, and I'll get into that, but just the way it kind of handles this sort of dark humor. Like there's a lot of like Coen Brothers esque themes throughout. But yeah, this basically is a man is blackmailing his own wife, who's cheating, and this kind of it almost starts like Dial M for Murder. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but it does it's like that setup, but there is a nice sort of twist that I don't want to reveal, but it subverts that a little bit. And I will say that this movie is a little bit convoluted at times. There's like crosses, there's double crosses, there's like characters that I think are a little unnecessary. I think they just kind of needlessly complicate things. But it is Christmas time at the end, so one
Yay.
could, yeah, one could make the claim that this is a Christmas movie. And I'm doing that right now. So
One gift.
yeah, and again, I think like it's great. I do really like how it is very sardonic. It is beautifully photographed. Like it's just stunning. It's some of the best noir black and white photography I think I've seen. At least if not the best, it certainly is up there. And I don't know why we don't talk about it more. But yeah, I hope that you know this gets a nice rediscovery. So the final title is Witness in the City. And this one starts out really moody. It has a very jazzy soundtrack, which is cool. And it's interesting because I feel like we associate noir with like a jazz soundtrack, and that's not really the case. But I kind of wonder if some of these like films, you know, from like France and other places maybe popularize that idea a little bit more. But anyways, so it is a nicely paced game of cat and mouse. It has another cheating spouse, you know, with infidelity, and this time the plot sort of reminded me of The Killer Must Kill Again, which is almost like you have one murder that sort of dominoes into another murder, or maybe more. I don't want to give it away. This is a really fun movie. I will say again, the photography is beautiful. You know, we have like fog drenched locations. They really utilize Paris beautifully again in this wonderful expressionistic black and white photography. It's really stunning. I was very impressed. Again, I think it is a little long for what it needs to be. I think it is a little bit convoluted at times. Was I engaged? Yes. Did I have a good time watching it? Also, yes. Overall, this is a great set. They're not all winners, but I will say that I never was bored with a single one of these titles. Like on some level, I was intrigued, engaged. Like the acting's great, the photography is just next level beautiful, and that brings me to the next point that I really want to make quick, which is they look fantastic. I honestly was, you know, it's not that I'm looking for faults, but I'm very like keyed into any kind of like artifacts or dirt or scratches or fluctuations in like the black and white, and all of it is across the board great. I will say that there wasn't a restoration where it was like notably bad. Some are a little bit better than others, but overall they're just clean, pristine, really beautiful. Like I think in particular it was Back to the Wall, which really looked, again, it's a stunning looking film, and I'm so happy that we have a really nice, U.S. Release of this film, because I think they very much are worth checking out, and I do love that Kino Studio Classics has put out this set, and I really hope that they do more, because it's kind of it took me down a rabbit hole of other French noirs that I'm like, all right, I need to see this now. So what did you think? Well, what was your favorite title out of this?
Yeah, I'd have to echo you. I believe Back to the Wall is my favorite. I did really like this husband who felt like he was wrong, just trying to like play with his wife and manipulate her, and just trying to like kind of catch her, like basically toy with her while like trying to get to an out. Like it doesn't seem like he really knew what would be a satisfying outcome for him, but then how it kind of snowballs out of his control is really interesting. I really like how that worked out. One point that I wanted to make, I didn't really get to make it with the last set. This set in particular, it doesn't seem like, not that the American like dark side of cinema set is neutered, but it seemed like a lot of those, like the American films, like it seems like a lot of their endings would just kind of like wrap up in very like morally okay ways, where it's just like, okay, we're not gonna like leave you in too dark of a place. The French films, they weren't as afraid to like do that. It's just like whenever I would reach the end of like an American film, I'm like, oh, they could go really dark with this, but they're like, oh no, he's doing the right thing. So it's like, oh, okay. But then like the French film, I'm like, this seems more true to life. Like I don't, it just seemed. But I did really like all of them. I would probably say next would be like Speaking of Murder, like the whole like band of thieves like type of element. I like that pretty well, but Back to the Wall is definitely my standout for these, and I agree that they look fantastic.
Yeah, and that's such a great point that you made earlier. They definitely are not afraid to go a little bit darker, and I really like how this sort of does. Oh, just dropped my thing. This does like really parallel, these films from this era. I believe Behind the High Wall was released very close to the same time as Speaking of Murder. They're only like a year apart, so in that regard, it's kind of interesting to like see how, again, they differ in tone. Like this, we think of like trench coats and like fog and all this atmosphere, and while yes, there is that in a lot of American noir. I mean, like they hit that like hard. I mean, everyone is chain smoking and wearing a trench coat and
Yeah.
being kind of extra. Which, yeah, it's a movie, so you gotta love that. But yeah, they're both really fantastic sets. I was a little bit disappointed that there wasn't any like commentary tracks on the French noir set. I hope this maybe does well enough that in like if we get a volume 2, for example, that we do get some like tracks, because I really love those, and I think that there's a lot of like really good sort of cultural context that I'm probably certainly not getting, which I think would probably enhance my enjoyment of these. But as it stands now, I love that they're out there. I love that they look beautiful. I'm just happy that like we have this in a nice collection. It's a great package that that you showed off earlier. So yeah. And yeah, I think with that we'll probably wrap it up. Did you have any other final thoughts on either set before we?
Yeah, just as a whole, like Kino's doing some good work, like international cinema, American, like all good in film noir. So like film noir fans are being taken care of. So just make sure to support them. They're doing a lot of really good work.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100 million% echo that sentiment. Like just, uh, you know, check them out. I believe I'm trying to think if their Noirvember sale is still going. But I will link that in the description if it is, so you can get these and get them on sale. But yeah, beautiful sets. I'm so happy that this is chugging along nicely. And again, I hope that we get more of the French noirs. And as always, we really appreciate any kind of likes, any engagement, comments are great. We love hearing from y'all. So with that, thank you for hanging out with us.